BATF. And they came in to tell all of us sheriffs in Arizona that we would now be working for the federal government. No negotiation, no contract, and we would do this for free using our budgets and our personnel to conduct background checks pursuant to the Brady Bill as passed by the United States Congress. And then right before they left, they said, oh, and the Brady Bill has a provision that if you don't comply, you're subject to arrest. This is the first time in United States history that Congress passed an unfunded, unconstitutional gun control law forcing sheriffs to participate with the threat of arrest. Do you know that only 7 sheriffs in this country joined this lawsuit? 7 out of 3,100. I was the first to file, and it was because I had studied the Constitution when I was a police officer in Provo, Utah. At that time, I decided that if I was not going to keep my oath of office, that I should leave the job. Instead of leaving the job, I decided I would keep my oath. At that point, I started reading the Constitution on my own, and then an announcement came from the state of Utah sponsoring a seminar for all peace officers entitled Constitutional Studies for Law Enforcement Officers. And the instructor's name was somebody I hope you know. His name was Dr. W. Cleon Scouser. This man changed my life. He taught a 16-hour police seminar, and we didn't study anything about case law. We didn't study the Miranda decision. We didn't study police tactics or how to shoot a gun. We studied The Making of America and his book so titled. And during that time that I was there, I was converted. And I do mean converted to the United States Constitution. And I took another oath. While listening to this man talk, I felt the spirit of freedom so strong, and I came to the conclusion that, do you know what the spirit of freedom is? It's the Spirit of God Almighty. And I swore another oath. I said to myself there that I will never be on the wrong side again. So when I moved from Utah back home to Arizona, that's where both my wife and I are from, I decided that I would continue my job in law enforcement, but I would follow the Constitution. Quite honestly, my good friends and fellow Americans, if we have sheriffs in this country, if we have judges and county commissioners and county attorneys who will simply follow one rule, keep their oath and protect and defend the Constitution, we get our freedom back tomorrow. Being in this great and historic place of Faneuil Hall in Boston and seeing the cobblestone streets where our founding fathers walked has been a great experience for my son and I. And some of you have asked, and by the way, my son is out at my table. He has my 2 books, and I want to make sure that you know and understand what this is. This is the second most powerful little pocket booklet you'll buy ever in your life. The first one's called the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence, and you should pass these out in tandem to every local official. And quite honestly, I don't really see a lot of hope in Washington, D.C., but if Gary Johnson wants me to run as his vice president, I'll do it. And Jordan, maybe you can do another song about us. All right. He's one of my favorite singers, and I have the CDs, and I love his music. And thanks for getting this meeting going. But I want to go over this. This this is the victory for state sovereignty, and this is the highlights of the Supreme Court decision that we won. You have to understand, our case made it all the way to the United States Supreme Court. Sheriff Prince from Montana, Sheriff Mack from Arizona, two small-town sheriffs take on the Goliath Clinton administration and miraculously live to tell about it. Let me read just maybe 3 or 4 things from this decision. Hopefully it'll get you interested to read more of it. Page 5, it quotes, "We have held, however," now this is quoting the United States Supreme Court, June 27, 1997, "the most important 10th Amendment state sovereignty decision in the history of our country." And I'll show you a few reasons why. Quote, "We have held, however, that state legislatures are not subject to federal direction." End quote. Don't you wish your state legislature knew that? Might want to give them one of these. Next, if your state was suing the federal government to stop Obamacare or any other intrusion or incursion committed by the federal government towards the states or counties or cities, would you want it to say anything more than this right here? Quote, "The federal government," we held, "may not compel the states to enact or administer a federal regulatory program." End quote. And finally, Scalia wrote this decision. And man, oh man, this is such a powerful thing. He says, "The separation of these two spheres, or defining what state sovereignty is," he says, "is one of the Constitution's structural protections of liberty." Structural protection of liberty, that your state, as James Madison said, interpose itself on behalf of the people to make sure they are not victimized by the federal government. Okay? Justice Scalia, once again, in his order of the court to the federal government, says this: "The federal government may neither issue directives requiring the states to address particular problems, nor command the state's officers or those of their political subdivisions." Counties, cities, and school boards are political subdivisions. "To administer or enforce a federal regulatory program. It matters not whether policy making is involved, and no case-by-case weighing of the burdens or benefits is necessary. Such commands are fundamentally incompatible with our constitutional system of dual sovereignty." Now, I want to add an asterisk to that. When he talks about case-by-case weighing of the burdens or benefits, that came exactly and directly from my testimony when I testified in the first hearing at the district court. And the federal government attorney said, "Well, Your Honor, why, just in the first 4 months of the implementation of the Brady Bill, we have denied 250,000 felons from getting guns in this country." And the judge stopped her and he said, "Counselor, do not try to pretend that your statistical analysis somehow equates to constitutionality." My favorite quote from this entire decision boils down to one little paragraph, and maybe just one sentence, and it's on the very back of the book. I put it in here twice because it's so powerful. Right here on the very back of this little booklet that every one of you should carry in your pocket, just as I got one right there. I've got my pocket Constitution right there. Those two should always be together. because Justice Scalia does something very unusual. He doesn't make up anything. In this great decision, he simply enforces what's written by the Founding Fathers, and he complies with the Constitution and his directive to follow the Constitution. And he says this: would you like to see a United States Supreme Court decision that says this, and I quote, "But the Constitution protects us from our own best intentions." But the Constitution protects us from our own best intentions. It divides power among sovereigns and among branches of government precisely so that we may resist the temptation to concentrate power in one location as an expedient solution to the crisis of the day. End quote. The crisis of the day, have you heard that lately? What's the Obama motto? Never let a good crisis go to waste. And so they continue to bring us the solutions that violate our Constitution, but hopefully appeal to our sense of fear. It's exactly what happened with Obamacare. And on the very first page of this book, I quote Thomas Jefferson, who said, "When all government shall be drawn to Washington as the center of all power, it will render powerless the checks provided and become as venal and oppressive as the government from which we separated." End quote. My question to you and to every sheriff and peace officer in this country: when the government becomes venal and oppressive, to whom can your people turn for peace, safety, and protection, if not the very person and people that they hired to do that just thing, and the very thing you promised to do when you took your oath, to uphold and defend and obey, protect, and preserve the United States Constitution? Now, I close every one of my speeches. This one's a little bit quicker than most of them, but that's all right. I close with the same thing. Remember the police training I went to? The state of Utah. I was at the University of Utah in Salt Lake City. Dr. Scalzo being the instructor. I close with what he taught me there. He taught 240 cops this little kindergarten exercise that I call America's political prayer. And maybe it's not a prayer at all, but maybe it's the only one we got left. And I want to dedicate it to all of you, today's contemporary patriots, to my friends over here sitting next to me, to my son and my other children, and to my grandchildren. You see, my first grandchild was born 4 years and a few months ago on the 4th of July, and her name's Liberty. And I want to dedicate this to her. This prayer that I dedicate to all of you and the founders goes like this: we, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America. And that's the eagle. Long may she be free.